I'm going to talk about the Nobel Prize of 1918, which was awarded to Max Planck for discovering the quantum mechanics and for leading its basis. To start with, the structure of the talk is going to be, at first, Max Planck's fundamental data, secondly, the Nobel Prize of 1918, after this, the reason why Max Planck obtained the Nobel Prize, I mean the quantum mechanics, and finally, referring to quantum mechanics, its historical context, its current state, and the uses that it has got nowadays. Firstly, I'm going to talk about Max Planck. He was born in Germany in 1858 and died also in Germany in 1947. All his family was very academic. Many of them were professors of many of different universities, so that's one of the reasons of Planck's success. Planck at school was really good at music, classic philosophy and science, so he asked his physics teacher for an advice, and he told him that in physics the important things were already discovered, that there weren't many things to discover, but Planck decided to study physics because he wanted to understand its fundamentals. In 1900, Planck discovered a fundamental constant called Planck constant, used for calculate the energy of a photon. Planck established that the energy that radiated in small units was called quantums. Planck's law linked that the energy of each quantum is the frequency of the radiation multiplied by the Planck constant. A year later, he discovered the hot radiation law, called Planck's law, which explains the emission spectrum of a black body, which is the ideal body who can absorb every radiation that reaches him, despite its wavelength. This law turned into one of the bases of quantum mechanics, which appeared a few years later. Planck had a very good relation with Albert Einstein. They helped and recognized each other throughout their lives. Planck recognized the importance of the relativity theory of Einstein when he was a completely unknown person. On the other hand, Einstein helped Planck discovering quantum mechanics. After this, referring to the Nobel Prize of 1918, Planck obtained it for discovering quantum mechanics with Planck's law and for laying its basis. He achieved to explain the emission spectrum of a black body, which turned into one of the bases of quantum mechanics. He explained this in 1901, but he won the Nobel Prize a few years later, in 1918. As I have said before, Einstein helped Planck a lot because, without his help, Planck's hypothesis would have been just that, a hypothesis, not more. Let's watch a video that explains a bit the emission spectrum of a black body. Wait a moment, please. Referring to quantum mechanics is one of the most important branches of physics. Quantum mechanics try to explain the existence of atoms and the mysteries of atomic structure. It's also the basis of the studies of atoms, nucleus, and elementary particles. Relating Planck with quantum mechanics, Planck said that the electromagnetic radiation is absorbed and emitted by matter in form of quantums through a constant called Planck constant. With this discovery of quantums, Planck achieved to explain the emission spectrum of a black body. Looking at this image, which explains the emission spectrum of a black body, we can see that if the temperature goes up, the maximum intensity of the black body is bigger, is higher, and that it will happen with a smaller wavelength. Depending in the wavelength, the spectrum can be ultraviolet, visible, or infrared. Let's see this more clearly in the next applet. Well, as I have said before, if the temperature goes up, the intensity will go up also, the maximum intensity, and the wavelength is going to be a little bit, not much, a little bit smaller. Let's see, here is, for example, here, if it's go out, is here, and well, the spectrum emission will be here, ultraviolet, visible, and infrared. The history of quantum mechanics starts essentially with the discovery of cathode rays in 1838 with Michael Faraday, with the introduction of the black body term by Gustav Kirchhoff in 1859, with the suggestion of Ludwig Boltzmann in 1877, which says that the energy states of a physics system should be discrete, and finally with the quantum hypothesis of Max Planck in 1900, who said that any atomic radiation in systems could be theoretically divided in discrete energy elements, and each element is proportional to the frequency, so every one of them could irradiate energy individually. In 1905, to explain the photoelectric effect, Albert Einstein said, based in Planck's hypothesis, that the light is formed by individual quantum particles called photons. Nowadays, the quantum mechanics hasn't changed much. It have just been unified with the relativism, and also its applications have changed because nowadays is applied to fields instead of simple particles. Finally, quantum mechanics have made possible the discovery and the development of many new technologies, for example transistors, that are used basically in computer science. Let's see an image of different types of transistors. Well, here we got. Well, thanks for listening, and I hope that you have liked it.